Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Masjid Muhammad Sunday Public Address and Ta'aleem. Today is Pioneer Sunday with Imam Dr. Nasir Ahmad. Welcome, Dr. Ahmad.
Thank you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. I seek refuge with Allah, the Almighty, against the enemy of humanity. There is no God but one, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his messenger, our prophet, sent to all of humanity, the seal of all of the prophets. There is no prophet to come after him. There is no religious book to come after the Quran. That is the last revelation and complete revelation for all of humanity. And Islam is the religion of nature and the religion of all of humanity. And it is the completion of the progression of all what we have been told of religions. There is but one God. All of the prophets are from the same one God. Humanity is one, and the religion is one. The religion of nature, and that religion is Islam. And to our viewers, Muslims and non-Muslims alike, welcome. It is my honor and pleasure to be a part of this very special and important program. And we give our thanks and appreciation to our leadership there in Houston, Imam Dr. Wazir Ali, and his wonderful host of imams and his staff that is doing great work in the Houston area. And this Friday, we will have one of your associate imams, Ahmad Shaheed, inshallah. He'll be in Miami this coming Jummah, and he'll be giving the Jummah at the Masjid Al-Ansar. And that's the community wherein he was born and raised, you know. So it is our honor and treat to have him as an invited khatib. with the blessings of Almighty God, Allah. I began there in Chicago. That's my birthplace, which was in the day and time was called Mosque Number 2. It was on the south side of Chicago, 53rd and Greenwood. And when I was a small child, I would say 7, 8 years old, I would walk to school. And the school that I would walk to was a Catholic school. And en route going there, I would have to cross one of the names of the street called Madison. And the Catholic school was on Washington Boulevard, but I'd had to cross Madison. And on Madison, about 4 blocks from where I lived, was the mosque on the west side of Chicago. And the cleanest and the most decent of men in the African American community were the men in the temple, as we called it, Temple of Islam, number 2, on the west side of Chicago. And I would see them every week, and I would be impressed. But being that young, I really didn't understand the differences in religion. But I remembered their cleanliness and their decency. And about once or twice a year, my parents would drive us on what we call the outer drive on the south side of Chicago, just taking us around sightseeing. And once or twice a year, we would see the Muslims gathered together. The women in their beautiful white flowing gowns, MGT, GCC, as it was known in the Nation of Islam. And we would see the men in their FOI uniform. It was very attractive. As I said, they were the cleanest and most decent group at that time when I was a child. That was around 1955, 56, around then, and even earlier, And I was always attracted to the group, but my parents had us in the church, so we didn't have any association. We didn't have any friends at that time that were in the temple or the mosque. So there was no way that we could visit when I was a small child. But as I got older, my first encounter with the Muslims, I must have been about 10 or 11 years old. And the brother came past the neighborhood selling the Muhammad Speaks. And he asked the question, who was God? And I told him, Jesus. And he said, where is God? And I pointed up like this. And he said, where is heaven? And I pointed up like this. And he said, where is hell? And I pointed down, right? And he asked me who the devil, and I couldn't answer that question. So then he proceeded to tell me that the black man was God. And now, mind you, I'm 10, 11 years old, first time hearing this. And, I'm raised in the Catholic Church. So, it's all pure white images everywhere. You know what I mean? And so I pointed upwards for heaven and pointed down for hell. And he said, no, all of that is wrong. Your heaven and your hell is right here. And then he proceeded to say, the black man was God and the white man was the devil. So naturally, I was torn inside myself. And the part that I liked was the part where he told me the black man was God, because up to that point, God was everything but black, And that was the thing that sent me on my course to the community of Islam, then at that time called the Nation of Islam. And so I was in my early 20s when I finally made the decision to go to the mosque. And as I said, it was on the south side of Chicago. And that was they used to have the teachings on Wednesday and Fridays and Sundays. That's when you could go and visit the mosque and hear the teachings of the Nation of Islam. The leader at that time was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the father of Imam W. Muhammad. And we had a special teachings back then, of which I'm not going to go into right now. Maybe some subsequent time I could do some of those teachings and share. But one thing that we were taught in the Nation of Islam is get some of this good earth. That was one of the teachings. And we would always hear that only in English. And I had no idea that that was the influence from the Quran. And the reason why I'm saying that, in that time, we didn't read the Quran. We were reading the Bible. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us that his teacher, Father Muhammad, told him, keep the Quran on the highest shelf in your house. And Father Muhammad, the teacher of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, told him, don't worry about teaching your children the religion, teaching a community the religion. Your children will be the one to teach the community the religion, the Quran, and etc. So the majority of us, we didn't read the Quran, but myself and a few of us, we would sneak and read the Quran on our own in the Nation of Islam. And this was in 1970, 71. And we had Arabic classes, and Imam Kazim was in the class. As a matter of fact, he returned he was in the community, I think, a year and a half or 2 years before me. So he and I were in the Arabic class, and he was in the Arabic class before me. And so our teacher at that time was Ali Baghdadi. He was a Palestinian, and he was a mathematician. He was a computer engineer, in the academic and business world, but he was good when it came to teaching the Arabic. So when we would have that teaching, get you some of this good earth, later on, we understood that that was from chapter 5 of the Quran, and I think verse 105, and it where it says in the Quran that you are to struggle and get your share of this material world. Now it doesn't quite say it like that, but anyway, it says your own selves obligate you. That's how it says it, you know. I'm paraphrasing. And in another verse in the Quran, now that we're older, it says, and do not forget your share of the material world. Well, we were in the nation of Islam. We didn't have the formal way to pray. We didn't have the formal reading of the Quran, but we had the essence and the idea of the Quran, which prepared us for the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad. You know, once I was mentioning how when we would be drilling, we had a FOI and we would drill, especially on Saturdays, and we would be marching and we would do right face, left face, about face, and forward face. And those are the four movements that we would have while we were doing our FOI training and drilling. And later on, we learned from Imam Muhammad that all that was preparing us for the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad, because turning to the right and turning to the left and backwards and forwards, and those who have military experience, they know exactly what I'm talking about because that's what you did in the military. Well, what that was preparing us for was the four takbirs. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allah is the greatest in all four directions where man is to have his existence on this earth. So in the nation of Islam, everything was the black man. It was the black man. I mean, just over and over and over. And it was it was extremely helpful, especially in the days of the 50s and 60s in Chicago with its riots, and Detroit with its riots, and California, Watts. It was riots all over the United States. And we, at that time, we were teenagers, some of us, we were in our 20s, and we were that generation that could not take racism. We couldn't take being cowed down or spoken down to as less than an animal, you know, and we did not have guidance. You know, we was just some young, brave, blind, ignorant African Americans, but we wasn't going to take no foolishness off of a white racist. And it was the Nation of Islam that saved the lives of most of us who became its members. And what I mean is that I had a very close friend in the Black Panthers, and we made an agreement that if I would go to the Black Panther meeting, then he would come to the Nation of Islam. He was a very sincere African American, you know, but we both wanted to bring some healthy change in the African American community. He felt that the Black Panthers was the way to go. And I didn't feel, I knew the Nation of Islam was the way to go. And what I mean by saying I knew, the teachings were simple, common sense. Establish your family, no drinking, no smoking, no reefers. In that group, you could have your nationalism, you could have your identity and concern for your people, but it was okay to hit a reefer. It was okay to snort cocaine, to drink alcohol. I couldn't do that. I couldn't see how we could get our freedom with drunkenness, you see. So then I began to compare the two groups, you know. That time, the schools were all over the United States. We had restaurants, we had bakeries. I mean, you name it. It was a nation inside of a nation. So therefore, he didn't have that much of an attraction to me as a movement in that group, because all they had was words and weakness in terms of drug usage. You see what I mean? And no offense to them, because they were very sincere men and women in that group. But I'm saying that their bad habits were their undoing. So the week that I was supposed to go to the meeting of the Black Panthers, and by the way, their meeting hall was 1 block away from where I live, and the mosque, both of these groups on the west side, and the mosque was 4 blocks away. So anyway, I was supposed to go to that meeting. I think it was on a Monday. And that weekend, that Saturday, they were murdered. The police department came on them in the middle of the night because there were infiltrators in the group. And so they raided their meeting hall, claiming that they had arms stored against the country, the city in particular. So they came there and they murdered those people in the night. The leader, Huey P. Newton, and my friend were killed in that activity. So that was proof for me that I had made the best decision, you know, at that day and time, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would tell us, do not carry any weapons and things of this nature, that Allah would defend the Muslims. And he would tell us that they have soldiers and they have guns, and Allah has soldiers. And he told us Allah's soldiers were the hurricanes, the tornadoes, the earthquakes, and things of this nature. And he would say, and those are the best soldiers in the army of Allah. So it was those who believe you didn't have a problem, because you would see these devastations of nature against an unjust society. And so we interpreted it as the war against evil, back in that time. So when I came into the community, I met Kazim maybe about 6 months after I was in the community, when I learned of the FOI. And then the two of us, we would work, and we opened up about 19 mosques in and around Chicago. And he might have been 19 or 20 years old. I was 20 something years old at that time. And that's how excited we were about the words of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We hadn't even got to Imam W.D. Muhammad yet, And so we did this for, I think, about 3 or 4 years. We would go to the drug houses. We would go into the streets. We'd go to the beach. We'd go to the park. We'd go to the high schools. We'd go to the colleges. It didn't make a difference to us. We didn't have any fear. We didn't know what fear was. We were so excited to have half knowledge as compared to no knowledge, that we felt that we could change the world with what we had from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Not only that, we would have what we would call fishing, meaning we would have cars, we would have buses, and we would set up meetings where we would go to the various organizations, and we would give a little information about the history of the Nation of Islam. And then we would invite the people to come and take a tour of all of the properties that we had in Chicago. They would take them on a tour of the restaurant, a tour of the printing press, the tour of the library, the tour of the school. And so many people who would come on those tours would be fascinated by the material achievement of the community, and really fascinated when they saw the total administration was from African Americans, not a Caucasian anywhere in sight. Now this is truly amazing, and I'm trying to give the picture, and then in the time, because this existed nowhere on this magnitude anywhere in the United States, no matter what state you went to. You didn't see this kind of development, community life in the African American community, unless it was in the relationship with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad at that time. Well, in his last year of his life, Imam W.D. Muhammad began to come back into the community, and he was given permission by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to begin teaching again. He was put out, and maybe another time we can go into why he was put out. But he always had respect for his father. And we were taught in the Nation of Islam that Imam W.D. Muhammad, Farid Muhammad, the teacher of Elijah Muhammad, wrote his name on the wall, that is W.D. Muhammad's name on the wall, and taught all of his family members and all of the Muslims before he was born that this would be the one of the children to help Farid Muhammad and Elijah Muhammad. No other minister was named, whether it was his family member or some associate minister in one of the mosques throughout the country. Okay, so now all of the pioneers, they know what I'm telling you. That the leader, said Imam W.D. Muhammad, would be the one to help his father, Elijah Muhammad. So this was drilled into us, you know. So we had great anticipation to hear Imam Muhammad. So the first time I heard him was on a Sunday afternoon in the first resurrection. And it was on 53rd and Greenwood. And he began to talk, and dear listeners, nobody, no minister could capture your mind with pictures, word pictures, like he could do it. No, none of them. He was gifted with that, you know. And so this went on where we had the big mosque when we purchased it on 73rd and Stony Island. The only one that could fill that mosque up was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad himself. So as he began to have bouts with his illness, he couldn't come out as frequently as he wanted to. And so the mosque, or the at that time we called it mosque, wouldn't be filled. So we had a basement and we had an upstairs. The upstairs was the bigger auditorium area where it would be filled whenever the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would come out and address us. But the lower basement area would be used for days when he would not come out, like maybe on a Wednesday or Friday, or even some Sundays. And so what happened, as his illness began to progress, the believers, they just fell off in the attendance, either in the upstairs or the downstairs, because they wanted to hear the leader, Elijah Muhammad. But Imam W.D. Muhammad was given permission by his father to begin teaching. And he took the teachings not only in Chicago, he took it around the United States. But when he would come out to the mosque in Chicago, he would fill the downstairs up. He would fill it up himself. No other minister could do that. I don't care who it was. And I don't even want to tell you the names of the real popular ones. You know them. They couldn't fill it up. And so what happened, it got to the point where we had to move from the downstairs to the upstairs, and the word would be Minister Wallace is coming out to teach. That's what we used to call him, Minister Wallace. When you would say that, it was almost like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad coming out. And what was unique about him is that he could use that blackboard, and he could draw pictures. He could put words on the blackboard. He could break it down for the least exposed in knowledge. And it was just so fascinating. It was so enlightening. So when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad finally passed, then the question became, who was going to be the next leader, you know? And it was a funny thing because it happened around Savior's Day, which is for us was we call Savior's Day, which is February 26th, you know. And what happened was we had all of our prominent ministers around the country speak on that particular Sunday. And some of them spoke, I would say too many of them spoke from an emotional point of view, you know. But when the Imam Muhammad began to speak, it was silence in that place. It was the armory, which we would use almost every year in Chicago when it was held in Chicago. And you could hear a pin drop in China. And I'm not exaggerating. I mean this to be very sincere with you, because he was using language which was transitional language. Remember, at that time, everything was black, 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 right? And so he never accepted that Allah was a black man. He never accepted this. And that was one of the reasons why he was put out of the community. So he had to be guided by Allah. He had to use the wisdom in order to hold the community together without presenting the image of a black man as God. Now, you imagine you having to do this to hold the community together, or any of the other so-called ministers at that time, right? So you know what he told us? He said, in his first way to try to bring us in transitional knowledge, he said, Allah is a divine mind, M-I-N-D. I mean, that struck the young ones. We were young. We were not 20s, and they got most of the pioneers too. But instead of saying Allah was a black man, or rather than saying Allah's not a black man, which would be too hurtful for the majority of that time, he was guided to say Allah was a divine mind. Now, when he said that, you could see everybody in the auditorium. They were like in a daze. Their mind was trying to grasp, how could Allah be a mind when we've been taught all this time he was a man and a black man? But it was so powerful. It was magnetic. It just held everyone in suspension. I can't even think of the word that I would like to use, but I know what I saw and I know what I felt myself. And so what happened, there was a young group of us. We were in our 20s, right? And it was almost just like the prophet. When he began, he was, I think, in his 40s, right? And he had Abu Bakr and many of them in their 20s and younger. And it was the same kind of analogy, Imam Muhammad in his 40s and we in our 20s and younger. And when he began to drop this information and these concepts, like the one which you hear say all the time, woman means womb of mine. Now imagine this in 1975, how powerful that concept was, and that man is mine, to get us off of black consciousness, that in itself was powerful psychology that nobody had anywhere in the world in the language context to be safe to bring about transition for a whole community. And just like Prophet Muhammad was the only prophet in world history to turn a community around from one religion to another. This has never been done before in history, before Muhammad the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Well, Imam Muhammad, having faith in Allah and the Quran, did the same thing. He turned us who had the corrupt form of religion, even though we might say it was Christianity or whatever you may want to call it, he turned us around by the thousands, hundreds of thousands. And what he did, and this is another thing that I happened to live to witness. In Chicago, he had a national hookup. And he was teaching us how to make salat. The difference between salat and dua. We would stand with our hands like this. And we were thinking in this position that this was salat. This is what we thought. We didn't know better. So he had to bring us out of all of that darkness and ignorance, you see. And so it came time for us to take Shahada. We thought we were Muslims because we used to write a letter, and you'd have to write a letter, and you'd have to write it exactly the way it was written, and you'd send it into Chicago, and then it would be read. And if it was any errors in the way you spelled T, if you didn't cross a T, a dot, and an I, you had to rewrite your letter all over again. Some people had to write that letter 5 and 6 and 10 times. I think I had to write at least twice, and it was frustrating if you didn't get it on the first time, because that's how much you were attracted to the community and how much you wanted to be a part of a community, because this was a community associated with Allah and you were building a nation within a nation. Very powerful language, and you felt a sense of pride and dignity and accomplishment and saving your people from failure and drunkenness and alcoholism, and you just name it, you know. And so you wanted to be a member as soon as you wrote that letter, you know. Yeah. And so what he told us then, that we were not Muslims, you know, and everybody was shocked, you know what I mean? We were hurt. And he told us, you have to take the Shahada, right? And he had said this, I think, about a month, maybe 2 months before the actual date. And so it had been buzzing around the United States and in Bermuda and Jamaica. You know, it wasn't just in the United States now. And so this was, I think, a Monday or maybe a Tuesday evening. It was a weekday. And it was on a telephone hookup. We used to call it back in that day. We didn't have Zoom like we have now, but it was a telephone hookup, conference call. And he gave the Shahada. Some people say it was a 500,000 on, some say 1,000,000. You know, no matter what the number was, no man in world history had what, I don't like to use the term converted, but I'll use it in this instance, converted that number of people, thousands upon thousands, in one day. He taught us, I would say, maybe a year, to give us a background and a foundation of what the religion was, the 5 beliefs, and the 5 actions that we have to do. So we were aware, but we never took the Shahada. And so he gave us the Shahada. And that was a miraculous thing, as I say, because it was never done before. So now he began to change the leadership. And by that, I mean, he began to change the members who were ministers in the various cities. He moved them around from their original cities to different cities to try to get them out of a problematic habit that they were in a way of teaching the old teachings and putting them in a new environment where it would be easy for them to continue with following and supporting him. So one that he brought was Imam Kamaladin, Ibrahim Kamaladin. And for those of you who don't know, the one man who brought in what we call the second resurrection was Imam Ibrahim Kamaladin. He was the minister who was brave enough to take the Muhammad Speaks newspaper, the articles of Imam W.D. Muhammad, and he would teach them in the mosque. He would teach them in the streets. He'd teach it at a college campus, you know. And Kazim and myself, we thought we were strong, you know. We looked like 2 little puppies compared to Kamaladin. And he was the one that brought in the language of Imam W.D. Muhammad throughout the United States. Now, other ministers have claimed it, and I can't say that they did not. But I know what I saw there in Chicago, because Imam Muhammad brought him to Chicago to assist him on his imam staff at that time, because he was so sincere to the language of the Sunnah of Muhammad the Prophet and the Quran. And so as a result of that, Imam Muhammad noticed Imam Kazim's enthusiasm. He noticed my enthusiasm. So he put the 3 of us together, Kamaluddin, Kazim Ahmed, and myself, because we didn't have any fear to take Imam Muhammad's language anywhere in Chicago or the United States. And so he called us the New Earth Team. The 3 of us had the responsibility to take the language, the words of Imam Muhammad, like seeds, and plant those seeds in the minds on the rich soil of the ignorant, especially the African Americans. And so they represented the earth, the healthy soil, like you put corn seeds in the ground. Well, the human mind at that time to us represented the soil upon which we had to plant the words of the Quran and the Sunnah of Muhammad the Prophet to develop the new people for the future. As Imam would tell us oftentimes, that we were the new creation We were not Africans. We were not the Americans, as you say, per se, but we were a new creation. And that was brought about by the new words that we were receiving from the Quran, from Muhammad the Prophet, as Imam in his loyalty following Prophet Muhammad brought about in us. Now, there are some concepts that I want to go through, but this is from 1:30 to 2 o'clock, and I want to be respectful of the time. And there's some other incidents and circumstances that I would like to share with you, the viewers, but I at least want to respect this 30-minute time. And I would be very happy to do a part 2 of this, in which I would like to get into some details, because there's some very serious things that I would like to share with you. Yes, sir. Wa alaikum assalam.
You can take about another 15 more minutes if you want to properly wrap up. If you want to, wrap up and take a natural conclusion to your.
Yeah. But you know, the natural conclusion is a lot of wisdom. A lot of wisdom and concepts that I would like to see, and I would just like to just do a part two at some time in the future.
Yes, sir.
Where I mean, when it's convenient for you, your staff and all, and give excerpts of what we took to the people that changed the people. Certain statements that the Imam would make, and we would take those statements to the community, the college, whatever it was. And I would say 90% of the time, it changed the people's mind. Now, whether they became Muslims or not, that's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is just to make the message clear,
Yes.
And so that's what I.
Can you give a couple of examples of
yeah, that's what I'm. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to do.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Imam Muhammad was saying, for example, the teachings of the Prophet, where the Prophet says, whoever imitates others is not of us. And so, we were thinking it meant that we had to have a beard, we have to have a thawb, sandals and things of this nature. So Imam Muhammad said, no, it doesn't mean that at all. He said, what the Prophet was telling us is that whoever imitates other than human nature is not of us. You see? And he would say, it's not your beard or your thawb that will get you into paradise, because many people will be in hell and they'll have on a turban, a kufi, and a thawb and things of that nature. He said that it is the original nature that we came in the world with, that Prophet Muhammad was talking about, and that his sunnah is your original nature. Simple concept, and so he would say, the people would tell him, that my nature wants whiskey, right? And Imam Muhammad would tell us to tell the people, say, no, you should tell them, you made your nature to want whiskey. Your nature did not want whiskey when you were born. Now, we're saying this into a group of people now, and these people some of them were total savages. You think you're back at the time of Muhammad the Prophet. And so he would tell us, ask them, so when you go to sleep at night, are you drinking the whiskey? Naturally they didn't have a response. And say, well, tell him to ask his wife, was he drinking whiskey during his sleep, right? So it would be little simple common sense techniques and statements like that would win over the majority of the people, and they would agree with us. Not that we know that they became Muslims, but at least it brought them where they willingly agreed with the comments that we were making. And it was the blessing being able to take a hadith like what I'm just saying with you now, and putting it in the colloquial language of the people, where the common people who couldn't speak Arabic could get the wisdom and make the changes in their life that was in the wisdom of the Prophet. So I want to kind of give some examples along this line, you know. And the other thing the man would say, we have the light that will remove the darkness from your mind. He said, tell this to the people. And in the Quran, you know, it says with Shamsi wa duhaha, right? You most of you know that verse, right? And so he said, when you talk to the people, you have to speak to them on their level, you know. And he would tell us, you have to speak to the ear that is open, you know. You can't speak to them with physics because they never went to college, you see. He says, if they're hungry, you have to speak to the ear of their stomach. You see, if they're unemployed, you'd have to speak to their ear of joblessness and things of that nature. So he would tell us, he would say that tells the people that the sunlight is not as powerful as the light that we have. And he would say, if you pull the curtain down, the sun can't come in. The people in the audience would say, yeah, that's true. He said, if you close the door, the sunlight can't come in. He said, but the light of knowledge that we are giving you, you can pull every shade and close every door, and the light will reach you. And so he said, tell the men that you are in Arabic, Arrijalu, for example. And Arrijalu means the legs. And so he said, tell them that the man in his mind is supposed to be like the legs on his body. And the legs on the body lifts the body up and carries the body from one point of progress to the next. It says, so you tell the men that your mind in Arabic is referred to as legs, and it is your thinking that is supposed to lift you up and your family out of poverty and carry you from one point of progress and success to the next. Most of the African American men got that concept, you know, and it turned so many of them on. Allahu Akbar. So that's what I want to do. I want to just show when we would go to this group and to that group, we would use a certain language of the Imam, and we would put it in a language context, depending on the level of the audience that we were in. You know, and Imam Muhammad was very concerned about it. Don't speak over the heads of the people. You know, speak to them on their level. Like Muhammad the Prophet would tell the Sahabas, he would tell them, when you teach, make it easy for the people, facilitate the knowledge for the people, you know. So that was very, very powerful. The same thing we're doing now. You know, we're doing the same thing now, but I'm just speaking now of history. This is in 1975, revolutionary knowledge, you know, to us, or we have heard this 1,000 times, but imagine the people hearing this for the first time. And most of the people would tell us, and I'm going to end this is the last thing I want to say. The majority of the people would tell us how much they appreciated the knowledge, and that they would say that if I become strong enough, the religion that I would join will be the Muslim religion. That's what they would tell us over and over again. But at that time, they just were weak, you know what I mean, for the alcohol or the drugs or whatever it was. But at least they had a clear message, and they could recognize on their own that they had to make a change in their own life. They would admit to that. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. So I'm thankful to your master and your leadership. You know, y'all give Imam Wazir great, great support. Give him good support. He's a good man, you know, and I appreciate the many messages you have there now. You know, that's wonderful too. So I say, ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. And the next time that we do this, I'm going to drop a lot of this wisdom, you know.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? That we did this in the first year, we did this in the second year. You see what I mean?
Yes,
and I
sir.
think the people probably would enjoy it better, you know.
Oh, alhamdulillah. Thank you very much for the wisdom that you shared. And
you're welcome.
You know,
you're welcome. We love you, young man, and your community. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuhu.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And thank you again, Dr. Imam Dr. Nasir Ahmed. And please stay tuned for our community announcements. So, assalamu alaikum. We want to let everyone know that we're still having our virtual khutbahs every Friday, 1:30 p.m. Imam Dr. Wazir Ali or an associate Imam will be presenting every Friday at 1:30 p.m. You can go to our Facebook or YouTube page to watch the virtual khutbah. We do have in-person Jummah still going on as well at 1:30 p.m. Salat is at 2 p.m. That's at Masjid Muhammad. Masjid Muhammad is making it easier to donate and help the community to keep growing and working in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we're asking 100 believers to commit to donating just $50 per month. And that's just $1.66 per day. So you can go to our website or Facebook to get more information on that. Mercy Community Center is still holding its in-person Jummah with 3 times available, 1:30, 2:10, and 2:50, with the mandatory guidelines still in place. Also, Mercy Community Center still has its ongoing campaign to raise funds in order to keep the expenses and the maintenance of Mercy Community Center Masjid Al Quran up to date. So you can go to the website or Facebook page of Mercy Community Center to get more information. And as always, please continue to join us every Sunday at 1:30 p.m. for our Ta'aleem and our public address, which is broadcast live on Facebook and YouTube. Your Zakat and donations are needed. Ways you can donate is by going to our website or Zelling us or using PayPal or cashApp with the information that's on the screen. So please donate generously. And as well, Mercy Community Center is still in need of your Zakat and your donations. And you can go to www.mercycc.org/donation in order to make your contribution. The Muslima Nights is still happening. This is for Muslima youths from the ages of 13 to 18. And then young Muslima adults from 18 to 30. That's every Sunday. You get more information by going to the URL when you rewatch the video. The new Muslim orientation every Sunday at 3 p.m. You can see the link in order to join. Sisters Halakha every second and fourth Saturday of the month from 7:30 to 9:30 a.m. You can gain access to this women-only event by emailing Sister Salima Cogdill at gmail.com. Brothers meeting every third Saturday from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. Brothers only meeting. You can follow the link that's on the screen in order to attend. That's every third Saturday of the month. As the project for our fundraising donor wall at masjidwdm Muhammad is still going on. For more information about that, you can call 281-794-9733, or you can just follow the email that's on the screen as you rewatch the video. You can get all that information. So once again, we want to thank you, and we'll see you all, inshallah, on Friday for the virtual khutbah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.